there, it's Susan Beyer. This is Fun with Research. I think we're on day 4092 of the COVID quarantine, and you're probably getting tired of seeing this shirt. But let's bear with it, and we're going to talk about something really important today, which I call the dusty binder syndrome and how to avoid it. A lot of us have had experiences with research where the research gets done, we're sort of handed this huge stack of paper with numbers and tables and a whole bunch of other stuff, and for one reason or another, it just never gets used. It ends up sitting on a shelf, or maybe you use it once and then don't take it down again, and it just ends up being something you track with you from office to office, but is never really practical. I hate the dusty binder syndrome. I think it's one of the reasons that people have a bad taste in their mouth about research or are reluctant to invest in research after they've done it before and had that experience. So we're going to talk about avoiding the dusty binder syndrome today. What I'm going to talk about is certainly true for agencies who are working with clients and research, but also if you're a marketer in an organization and you are responsible for conducting research or working with outside partners to do that and have a leadership team or folks up the chain or even sort of other parts of your organization that you need to engage in the results of your research to make change, this will be relevant to you. So I hope you find it helpful. So part of getting clients engaged in research that's really what avoiding the dusty binder syndrome is about. You've got to make your research interesting. You've got to make it sort of relevant to their daily existence and the kinds of things that they're working on in terms of their own goals. And you have to make it functional. You have to make it easy to use and to work with so that it doesn't just sit on its shelf and be just pages and pages of numbers that don't make sense to anybody. I have a few different ways that I attempt to do this with my clients, my agencies and their clients, and I thought I'd share with you today. So the first way of avoiding the dusty binder syndrome with clients or internal clients like your leadership team, I find is, first of all, engaging them in the research as you go through it. We start all of our projects with a workshop in which I ask a bunch of questions and type like crazy, but basically my clients, whether it's the agency and their client, or if you're in an organization, your leadership team or whatever, gets to explore questions about what would be incredibly helpful for them to come out of this research, the kinds of assumptions that they have that they like to test, the things that would really make the research helpful for them in their daily life. And I have found that engaging clients in this way in the early stages gets them very excited about the research. It gets them invested in the research because they have questions in the research that they wanted to ask, that they need the answers to. And they feel like, and it's true, that their researcher has a better idea of the kinds of things that are going to be helpful to them. So just engaging sort of your clients throughout the process is incredibly helpful. Once you, and that can be, let me say, just from sort of exploring the initial content to sort of engaging in the finalized product in terms of your survey or your focus group discussion guide or any of those kinds of things. I keep my clients engaged with how responses are coming in on their surveys. That's very exciting to them to see how many people are taking the survey, and reminds them that sort of they have this initiative underway and keeps them excited about the results. Let's talk about results for a minute. So part of the reason the dusty binder syndrome is called that is because a lot of research results are presented in a very sort of dry format. Maybe it's a PDF, maybe it's a big printout of crosstabs, the results of every single question in the survey, paper. It's just a lot to go through, and there's really not often a lot of signals in terms of what is really important or foundational versus some other things that maybe you asked but didn't turn out to provide a lot of helpful information. I'm a huge fan of live interactive visualizations of survey results. When I first started doing research, I was just making charts in PowerPoint or Keynote, the sort of Mac corollary to PowerPoint. And it's fine, but it's pretty static. And now we both analyze as well as show our clients the results of their study in a live interactive visualization that allows us to highlight things very easily. It allows us to change the views, maybe from looking at results between segments versus looking at the same results by age or by gender or by their level of engagement with your company, whether they're a buyer or a prospect or a student or a prospect or something like that. And I find those kinds of results things are not only exciting and engaging with people, but really help you sort of highlight the things that are key, that are important to talk about. I go through all of our results in a workshop with our clients. We walk through all of it together so that they can hear my perspective as a longtime marketer and a researcher, but they can also sort of inject their own questions and their own ideas and the things that are surprising to them when we see results or whatever that they want to talk about. And that's a good way to engage folks. I think it's important to talk about the implications of research. Even if you are not responsible for decisions with respect to marketing or whatever, in my case, I'm typically working with agencies who are the marketing arm for this organization. And certainly it's not my role to supplant them, but I think it is powerful to share things that come out of the research and the implications of those with clients, because that sort of embeds in their head the important things that you want them to walk away from. In a lot of our studies, because we do attitudinal segmentation, one of the things we find is that specific demographic profiles don't really have a lot to do with what's going on in people's heads. So for me to be able to show a chart on age or income or gender and talk to clients about the fact that we're seeing segments across the full spread of these things, that it's not, you can't tell what segment somebody's in based on their age or their gender or their income, is powerful, and they take that away. So talking about implications and not just sort of leaving them with the dry data, I think is very important. And then the next piece, which I think really puts the bow on all of it, is to ensure that if you're doing research for marketing, if you're doing research to help with product development or with sales or whatever, that right after getting the results of the research, your client is engaging in sort of workshopping the implications of that within their own organization and with their teams. So typically my agencies, after the client gets the results of the research, are coming right in on the back end and saying, okay, let's get together and let's do some brainstorming, or let's talk about this. I have clients who within their organization have done some big brainstorming workshops involving people from across the organization in all kinds of different roles about sort of what the implications of these findings are for the company, for their role, for their part of the organization, and for that function. And I think that that does a tremendous job of really sort of embedding the concepts and the findings of the research in the minds of people who are really going to have to be carrying out sort of the implications that are the results of this research. They're going to have to be thinking about approaching clients differently. They're going to have to be thinking about sort of how maybe their sales training works, or if they're in marketing, what kinds of content ideas they have, or creative or whatever. And I think just sort of working through that, as opposed to just sort of receiving a big binder thump on your desk that you're supposed to look through and then maybe never do anything with, is really powerful. So if you are doing research, if you're engaging with research for your organization, or you're an agency working with working with a client, it's so important to avoid the dusty binder syndrome. It ensures that your client will be able to make the most of the investment that your organization has made in research, and in time and in money, and it's going to give them a much better perception on the back end about the research being valuable and effective for them. So think about the dusty binder syndrome. Think about how you could avoid the dusty binder syndrome when you're talking with research, whether it's a big study or a small one, how you can get the people you need to be engaged during the process, while they're learning the results of the study, and then while they're thinking about and strategizing the implications for their organization moving forward. I hope you found this helpful. We will see you next Friday on Fun with Research.